go to the Stanley Fencing and Gates hotline. We talk to AustinPriceVolquest.com. All things Tennessee football, recruiting, team notes, everything. AP, good afternoon, sir.
I don't think this is Josh and Swain. I think this is the old school Swain event, baby. Just me and you.
One-on-one, right?
One-on-one.
All right, let's do it, man. Let's do it. You broke the news about Jamal McCoy tearing his ACL back home while training, and he's Tennessee's best player returning, All-American this year. There's been some talk about possibly looking in the portal to get a player just in case he's not ready. Is that still the plan, or has that plan changed?
You know, Jason, I think that a lot of it, well, right now they won't do anything until the spring window. And so I think what you're going to see is they're going to give the crash course to Ty Redmond and to Trey Poteet and Caleb Beasley and some of those younger corners and see where they're at. And if they walk out of spring feeling like, man, we can't go into the fall with what we have, then I think they might look to add somebody. Now, if they feel comfortable with where they're at, then I think it would depend on kind of who goes in, who's available. I don't think they would just take a player to take a player if they feel good about where they're at. So I think a lot of it will depend over how things go in spring practice.
You've covered this league, this team for a very long time. I've played in this league. Experience matters at certain positions. Some positions, maybe it doesn't matter as much. And you want experience, you want talent. And with NIL and the commitment that you have made to some players, looks like Tennessee's going to be in a position to play some young players. What's the balance with this team coming up between playing young players or trying to lean more on experience? Because it seems like Tennessee will be in a position to play younger players this year.
They will, and when you make the kind of investment in NIL that Tennessee's made, or any school for that matter makes, in some players in a recruiting class, I think you have to weigh, like, how quickly do you get them to the field? Because you don't want to make some big investment and then they're sitting over on the bench and then they get disgruntled and because they're not playing, and then they leave and you've spent a year's worth of NIL and some decent money and got nothing out of it. There's no return on investment. So I think, for all schools, they're trying to balance getting kids to the field as quick as possible, playing their younger players that they have money invested in. And, Tennessee is going to have that opportunity this fall. Like, I do think that there's a nice balance. Like, look at the defensive line. There's some nice veterans still in that room. Then there's some young guys like a Marion Dye and Isaiah Campbell that, like, Tennessee's obviously, made a nice investment in, that, they need to get to the field, that they need to play. And so I think that those older guys will help bring along those younger guys. And I think that all that helps. And then you got a position like receiver where right now you have 7 scholarship receivers on the team, Jason, 4 of which have never played a college down. 2 of the other 3 have played bare minimum, and then Chris Brazel. So it will be interesting to kind of see how they balance that, because they're going to have to be, Kelsey Pope will be really, in a lot of ways, forced to play players who don't have a ton of experience, and they'll be learning on the fly. And so, I guess for me, Tennessee is in a spot where they still have some real key experience in certain places, but they're going to absolutely play younger players this fall. That's going to be a thing, much like a year ago we were, saying, hey, Tennessee never rotates. What did Josh Heupel say? We have to rotate more. Well, they did. They rotated a lot more this past year. I think the battle cry this year will be, we have to get some of our younger talented players to the field, and I do think they will.
AustinPriceVolquest.com. Junior Day over the weekend, the second one of the offseason, if I'm not mistaken. How did the Junior Day go? What was the reaction to Tim Banks getting an extension? Just the overall feel from Junior Day.
It was a good, I think it was a lot of, let's face it. I mean, these recruiting visits, official visits, unofficial visits, Junior Days, they all are well received at any school, because schools know how to sell themselves. They know how to put their best foot forward. And so, the kids came out of, Saturday feeling good. Rodney Colton, former South Carolina commit, came out of there, raving about Tennessee a good amount. Anthony Jones, Leo out of the state of California, said Tennessee's, the the leader. Keyshawn Stansel, defensive lineman out of North Carolina, raved about Rodney Garner. So a lot of good positives that come out of the weekend. And, Tennessee will now kind of, focus on spring practice over the next month, and then they'll welcome recruits back for spring ball and maybe a junior day in the month of March once things open back up. But things are closed for now, and so it will be more focused on the team. But, yeah, recruiting, it never stops. Tennessee will work the phones over the next month before kids can get back to campus.
Last question, AP. Pretty easy to guess who's going to play playing tackle, starting at tackle. You look at what Tennessee did in the transfer portal, bringing in 2 guards, one guy that plays center in Pendleton. Give us a young offensive lineman that you would buy stock in that could be important to the offensive line protecting Nico this season.
I would go as far as like who could compete to start in maybe one of those roles. I would tell you probably Jesse Perry. But you just never know who's going to take a step during winter workouts and then spring practice. This is a big next 2 to 3 months for Gage Ginther, for Max Anderson, for Bennett Warren, obviously Jesse Perry as well, for William Satterwhite. That's 5 offensive linemen from last year's class, Jason, that I think all those guys Tennessee they really like a lot. And they've got to figure out a way to start getting some of those younger players to the field. Obviously, they got Sam Pendleton. They got Wendell Moy, 2 really nice additions to the offensive line. What does the offensive line look like? Andre Carrick is still around and is trying to work on an appeal. If he wins his appeal, what does the offensive line look like then? Because at that point, I wonder, does Pendleton slide to center? Because as you pointed out, he has played it some. And then you roll with, Andre and Wendell Moy at guard. Well, where does that put all those young linemen that Tennessee genuinely likes? Like, the problem is no kids want to stick around and wait another year. They want to play now. And so it will be interesting to see how these kids respond this spring, because I think this is a big opportunity for somebody, especially if Andre isn't back. Then who competes for center? Does Pendleton play center and somebody's competing for an open guard spot? What does that look like? And then what does the tackle situation look like outside of Hurd and David Sanders? Everybody pencils David in because of the investment in NIL, and that's where I think you should pencil him in at, because you don't go that route to set him on the bench. But where's Larry Johnson at? Where's Bennett Warren at? Jesse Perry is kind of that swing guy that can play inside. He can play outside. There's a lot of combinations and a lot of unanswered questions about the offensive line that will shake out over the next couple of months. But that's a unit that's got depth to it and has talent to it. So I do think Tennessee's offensive line, in theory, could be better in 2025 than they were in 2024. And in 2024, obviously Tennessee ran for, a ton of yards, but what's the pass protection look like? How much better is Lance Hurd in year 2? What does Wendell Moy give you? What does Sam Pendleton give you? I think there's some unanswered questions, but I think there's a lot of hope in that room.
A lot of competition on the way this spring, AP. We'll be covering it. I know you guys over at Volquest will be covering it. Man, appreciate the time today. Let's do it again. We got a lot more to cover with this football team, man. It changes, it seems like, every single day. So appreciate the time. Let's do it again.
Sounds good. Thanks, Jason. Appreciate you, buddy.